If you had the luxury of having a governor that actually let you leave your home the last 12 months, you probably saw a lot of this, and also this. And one could wonder why anybody in their right mind would want to build a home right now, especially with construction labor and costing so much. As a matter of fact, Business Insider reported this week that the cost of lumber has gone up more than 250% in the last week. And Wall Street Journal continues by quoting, "Crude oil, a starting point for paint, drain pipes, roof shingles, and flooring, has shot up more than 80% since October. Copper, which carries water and electricity through the house, costs about a third more than it did in the autumn." And at this point, you might come to the conclusion that 2021 is quite possibly the worst year to build a single family home. Well, then you would log on to Redfin and see the other side of this coin and see that the median sales price for a single family home in the United States the last 12 months has shot up 14.4%. And on top of that, the number of homes being sold above the asking price has also increased 14.4% to a staggering 36.1% of all homes being sold above its asking price. So of course, this begs the question, is it worth it to build a home in the year 2021? Hey, what's going on guys? Daniel here, one half of the Clock Brothers. Now, it's no secret that the year of 2020 and 2021 has been for the record books when it comes to our housing market, between record lows in foreclosures, interest rates, and the amount of homes that are in inventory with millions of mortgages in forbearance, along with a new wave of millennial buyers. We experienced a bit of a crazy ride in the last 12 months. Well, one of the byproducts of all this has been historically high prices in a single family home, to the point where offering $20,000 to $30,000 more than the asking price is considered normal in certain parts of the country. And this leads to a lot of buyers considering alternative options, one of the prime choices being building a home for themselves as opposed to buying an existing home. So in this video, we'll be addressing that very topic by looking at the pros and cons of building a home in the year 2021. But before we go ahead and do so, guys, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin with the cons, with con number one being the risk of values plummeting due to a potential market crash. Now, of course, the big question that everyone is asking right now is, when is the next housing market crash going to occur? And it seems that it has become not if, but when is that going to occur? Now, when building a home, of course, we run that risk of building a house, expecting prices to be at a certain level, and then levels potentially plummeting due to a market crash. As a matter of fact, in 2008, we saw an average drop of 33% across the board in average home values, and with the cost of materials and labor being so high, that may be a bit problematic. And especially if you're using cash to fund the construction, the cost, and the labor, we could potentially be losing a lot of money with the values plummeting in the market. And speaking of which, guys, con number two is the cost of materials today, along with the delays as well. Because one of the things that people don't talk about when it comes to construction costs is holding costs. We have stuff like taxes, insurance, the cost of materials, labors that's associated with time. And at the end of the day, we all know time a lot of times can cost money. So we already talked about this in the intro of the video when it comes to the cost of labor, right? We already talked about how there's an 80% increase since October with the cost of crude oil, which is very essential for paint, drainage pipes, roof shingles, and also flooring. And we also talked about how copper has seen a 33% increase since this past fall, along with lumber being up 250% in the last 12 months. Now, guys, we've talked about all of these things already, but one of the things we haven't talked about, which actually leads us to con number three, is the cost of labor. Because at the end of the day, materials aren't the only cost for building a home. As a matter of fact, they're not even the biggest cost for building a home. As a matter of fact, according to Home Guide, the ratio of labor cost to material cost is about $1.28 in labor for every $1 in material. And if you look a little lower in that screenshot, you can see how much labor can cost, with architect fees ranging between $125 to $250 an hour, master electrician fees ranging from $35 to $55 an hour, bricklayers charging about $38 per dollar. And we haven't even talked about the cost of an interior designer, which, considering my wife is one, well, I'll let her tell you herself.
Hey, hun.
Hey, question for you. How much do interior designers charge?
I would say around $180 an hour.
What?
But I can find one. Yeah. but I know someone who only charges 140.
Okay, all right, you're paying for dinner next time. Thank you, that's all I needed. Bye. And on top of that, we haven't even talked about the landscaping that you're gonna have to do post-construction, along with the site work and also the prep work you're gonna have to do for the land to make sure that it is ready to build on and develop. Now, having said all that with the cons, let's go ahead and move on with the pros, with pro number one being the amount of equity that you have post-construction. Now, there's obviously two ways that you can finance a new build construction. One being cash or credit, which you utilize the cash that you have in your bank, or maybe you pull the line of credit to be able to fund the construction. Or the other option would be getting an actual construction loan, which right now banks are charging about 50% down in order for you to obtain a construction loan. Now, regardless of which option that you use, whether you use your own cash or credit or you take out a construction loan, most likely you'll have a lot of equity afterwards on the back end post-construction, meaning that you'll have a lot of equity on the back end. So yes, for construction loans, banks are asking for 50% down because they want to be able to mitigate their risk for right now where the market's at. And at the same time, the cost of land may be a little higher. So yes, your upfront costs are higher, but that also means your back-end equity is a lot higher as well. And what's nice about a lot of equity post-construction is that considering the nature of interest rates today and how low it is, the option of being able to refinance your equity out is also very possible. And this leads us to point number two when it comes to the pro side, which is being able to build accordingly to what the trend is right now. Now guys, I like this point because consider the amount of changes that has occurred in terms of what people are looking for in a home, even in the last 12 months. A great example of that is having a home office. I mean, think about it, guys. Think about how important it is to have a home office compared to how important it was 5 years ago. I mean, nowadays people are looking for homes where they have two home offices because the husband and wife are both working remotely and are both working from home. So they're looking for that type of space. And being able to adjust to that current trend, which I believe is going to continue to be a trend moving forward, I believe that's going to give you an absolute edge in today's market. And it's also going to increase the resale value of the home, considering that's one of the most important things that we do in looking for an existing home. What is the resale value? And last but not least, guys, point number three for the pro side is the acceleration and the vast market appreciation that we've had in the housing market in the last 12 months and the expectancy for that to be sustained. So if we look at stuff like President Joe Biden's proposal to institute a $15,000 credit for individuals who want to buy their first home, all the way to government intervention, artificial boost in the economy, I think it's pretty safe to say that at least for the next 3 to 6 months, we're going to see somewhat of sustainable housing prices all across the country. Now, the counterpoint, as we've already discussed earlier in this video, is the cost of labor and also the cost of construction, which obviously our point indicates that the market appreciation will simply absorb the cost of the labor, cost of the construction, cost of materials on the back end because of how fast the market is appreciating. Because think of it like this, if the cost of labor, construction, and materials is very high for you, guess what? It means it's also high for everybody else, therefore increasing the market altogether. So the margin that you lose because of the cost of lumber, the cost of copper, and everything else, most of it, if not all of it, will most likely be made up in the back end with the market appreciation and the equity and the yield that you will accumulate because of the shortage and because of how housing prices are increasing right now. Now, at this point in the video, you might be saying, well, Daniel, those are great points. You made some really good pros, you made some solid cons, but we want to hear from you. What do you think about this, right? We clicked on this video because we want to know what you think about whether or not you should build a home in the year 2021. So my friends, here's my answer. I think it absolutely depends. Now, what does it depend on? Well, I say it depends on where you live. If you live in a state like Arizona, Idaho, Colorado, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, the Carolinas, I'd say go for it. Build a home because not only does it financially make sense, but you're talking about markets that have a net gain in population that will most likely see a sustainable growth over the next 30, 40 years. And sure, we will have market corrections, most likely 2 or 3 during that time. But if you're talking about an area that's gaining in population, especially very popular amongst our millennial generation, our generation is going to be in the housing market the next 20, 30, 40 years. So just by sheer supply and demand, you've got a pretty decent safety net and a pretty strong bet in terms of building a home and making sure that value is somewhat sustainable over the next 20, 30, 40 years. Because at the end of the day, guys, don't forget your home, although I don't believe it to be an asset, it's an equity vehicle. There's equity inside your home that you could have, that you could utilize to invest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, whereas if you live in a state like California, New York, my home state of Illinois, which, by the way, congratulations, Governor Pritzker. We are #1 in the number of people that move out of our state. So good job, right? So if you're in a state like California, again, states where a lot of people are moving out, I would highly encourage you guys to do some more research on the cost of construction and whether or not it's worth it to build a home versus buying a home. Because again, although the market's hot all across America right now, a lot of these markets, a majority of them at least, will not hold in the short-term future. So again, guys, to sum it up, it depends. It depends on where you live. Long story short, if you live in a state, if you live in an area that's gaining a population, that's having growth in jobs, economics, household income, you name it, things that you want to see in a housing market, then I say absolutely go for it. Whereas on the other side, if you have a market that's losing individuals and the market is slowly going down because of it, then I say do some more research. So again, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I encourage you guys to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're feeling extra generous, please click on that notification bell as we have content on real estate and the housing market all the time. And also, if you want to follow us on Instagram, that'd be great to get more behind the scene action. So thank you guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.